Alright class, so I'm going to start off by reviewing how to solve a quadratic equation using the area model, and it looks something like this. Very similar to how I've been doing before. I'm going to show my work over here. I'm going to try my best to show my work over here. Cut this in half and show my steps over here. So the first thing I want to do is set up my area model. Okay. So set up the area model, and I guess with that identify A, B, and C. And in this case, A is the 1 next to x squared, so A equals 1. B is going to be the 1 next to the x. Be careful with the negatives. B equals -4. And C is going to be the 1 by itself, the constant term, so it's going to be -5. So what you want to do is, once you set up your area model, is that ax squared, so in this case x squared is always going to go down here, and C, or in this case -5, is always going to go up there. Oops. That's a -5. Now, to set up the area model, again, it's always, let me just write it down over here. It's always going to be ax squared up here, and C, which you kind of just figured out over here on the left. Now, to set up the x, that's where it gets a little confusing. So that's where I have to kind of go through and think about it. I know that on top it's going to be x squared times -5. In other words, on top it's always going to be acx squared, because you multiply the first times the last. And in this case, you're going to get -5x squared. And on the bottom, you're always going to get -4x. Just to remind ourselves, that's actually going to come from the b term. So on bottom, it's always b, and it's going to be dx. Now, what I'm looking for, this is where it gets a little confusing. I want two numbers that when I multiply, I get the top, but when I add, I get the bottom. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you, but it's going to be -5x and 1x. Now, why does that work? Because -5x times 1x is going to be the same as -5x squared, which is, again, exactly what we had on top. And on the bottom, -5x plus 1x, what's a plus sign, equals -4x. And that's what we wanted on the bottom. So really we're just playing around with numbers. And then from here, you get this number, you plug them in here, it doesn't really matter where, but I'm going to go ahead and put -5x up here, and I'm going to go ahead and put 1x over here. So here's the part where most of us are having some issues. So I'm going to chunk that up, and then the second part is going to be factor the area model. So the way I think about it is that, let's say that I'm covering this part right now. I'm asking myself, what goes into -5x and -5? It's like the greatest common factor. In this case, it's going to be -5. Now, using the same idea, I'm going to ask myself, let me delete this one. -5 times what number is going to give me -5x? In this case, it is x. X times what number is x squared? It is x. And let me go ahead and delete this one. X times what number is going to give me 1, and in this case it's going to be 1. So if you want to kind of have a little tip, always remember to cover it up. It actually helps a lot for most of us if you just cover it up. and just focus on one row or one column at a time. Here's where it gets a little fun. I think this is fun. You have one chunk and you have another chunk. These are going to be called my binomials. So I'm going to say 3, create my binomials, and use the 0 product property to solve. So essentially what I'm saying here is that 0, we want that to equal to x squared minus 4x minus 5. In other words, that's going to be the same as saying x minus 5 and x plus 1. And I get that x minus 5 from the side, the left, and I get the x plus 1 from the bottom. Equals 0. I'm going to chunk each one, so I'm going to pull this one over here. Because this is the 0 product property. The 0 product property tells us that if one of them has to be equal 0, we're just going to assume they're both 0. So x minus 5 equals 0. Plus 5. Plus 5. X equals positive 5. That's one solution. And then the other one, I'm going to have x plus 1 equals 0. Minus 1, minus 1. X equals negative 1. Simple as that. Now, I'm going to go through and I'm going to label some mistakes that I've seen. I've seen a lot of people get confused with the identify. Don't forget to include the negatives, okay? Because those negatives, like in B and C, will make a huge difference. Another issue that I've seen is finding these two numbers right here. If it helps, it's always a smart move to check your work. So I'm going to say check. Because then you know if you're actually getting two numbers that you multiply on top and you add on the bottom. Another mistake that I see a lot is the factoring. Again, I would use this idea over here to factor because it's going to clear a few things for you. And the last part I see, which is very common, I'll still give you points for this, is the adding the 5 or getting x by itself. But again, I think they're little mistakes. Most of us get the procedures, so please continue working on. If you're confused on any other parts, please let me know and try the classwork online.